How are we doing, good people? It's a Tuesday. Let's do a little live stream. This is a story that came out about 6 days ago, end of last week. I didn't cover it. I saw it. We were covering something to do with some crazy story with the super mayor. But this one, we're starting to see more and more stories of the reality of bringing 7 million is the official count that border goes with. It's more like 10, 15, 20 million folks that have come through the southern border and not legally. You know what I mean? So today's story, Tren de Aragua comes for U.S. kids. Gang member accused of trying to recruit middle school students in Texas. Now, one of the other little tidbits in this is that the media is now reporting you've got Tren de Aragua enrolled in schools throughout the United States because these gang members, they're super young. And it makes sense because when you've got a juvenile, you got somebody under 18, they get busted. What's going to happen to them? Not much, especially if they're looking to seek asylum. They've come from Venezuela. We've done everything to just, try and get these folks into our country. Why would we kick them out? Even if they're running drugs, running prostitution, all this crazy stuff that Trump has been talking about for years. And you know what they said he was? Oh, he's racist. That's not going to happen. He's racist. Well, here we are. Let's take a peek. Here we are with the New York Post running a story last week. Yeah, recruiting kids from a middle school. So like 6th, 7th, 8th grade. Absolutely shocking. But then again, is it? Here's a video. You got to watch this video. This is not our main story, but we'll talk about this one. This is some wild stuff here. Let's take a look at this. I'm going to go like this for you. This is a fine young lady, Tren de Aragua, who was busted at the hotel in El Paso. Remember that hotel where they claimed, there's nothing going on here. And Tren de Aragua just overrun the entire hotel. Get my audio set up for you. So one of those quick videos from the Post. These are always good. Barbie. Does that look like maybe a dude to you? It did to me. I don't know. That was my first thought. Is this a girl or a boy? I don't really know. Or is this just a really hardened girl? It's hard to say, right? There's the hotel. Gateway Hotel. I mean, that's either a harsh-looking female or, guy. Don't really know. I think it's a girl. I do. But, yeah. We've covered that. Somebody's barfing. Perfect. Yeah, so check this out. She was busted with her 5 kids who she used as drug mules who stored and sold her narcotics. Perfect. Gotta remember though, you coming from Venezuela, you've got a little different outlook on life. You might look for opportunities in different places that we as Americans don't. And that's what Trump was talking about. He was talking about, hey, you got some people coming over that have made life decisions based on their reality in Venezuela, which is they've emptied out their prisons and they literally let the prisoners run their own prisons. I mean, they had gyms in there, restaurants in there. They had a petting zoo in the gym where a lot of these folks are, or in the prison where a lot of these folks are coming from. We covered that one. The United States is just a new territory for them. It's and they've got a perfect cover because they're here under the auspices of asylum. Oh yeah, we're coming from Venezuela. And if you're in a sanctuary city, the world's your oyster. Why wouldn't you go out, just commit as many crimes as you can? Because you're going to get away with it. Eventually, you're going to get popped and, somebody's going to say, okay, this is your 13th crime. Maybe, just maybe, we need to send you back. But United States government isn't really working with the government of Venezuela because we don't have any diplomatic relations with them. Oh, how's that work? Well, it works the way that we're talking about here. So a Tren de Aragua gang member's been busted after allegedly trying to recruit middle school students, according to cops, and experts warn that it's a sign the brutal Venezuelan gang has already infiltrated American schools. I'm going to pronounce this name wrong. No apologies here, because this is a gang member. Virgines Kovoa, 32, who has multiple arrests for theft. Perfect. Since crossing the border illegally 2 years ago, is suspected of trying to make contact with students at Jane Long Academy and Las Americas in Houston, 2 different schools. Federal law enforcement sources told the Post. Imagine being a kid. You're a kid. You're just going to school. Hey, you want some work? You want a task? You want to be part of a cool gang? All right. I got you. Give them some kind of small little bribe, get them in, get them going. And, we'll run across it. I can't remember exactly where it is, but oftentimes what they're saying is these are kids without dads. So you got, unstable family life. Let's just put it that way. Go after the kids that need to have some sense of family. They know what they're doing. They know what they're doing. They are recruiters. Kovoa, a Venezuelan migrant. Here's our boy right here. Here's our guy. This is our guy who's out there in the middle schools. If you see a dude like this coming up to your kids and you're in Texas at middle school, maybe, just maybe, don't accept his candy. You know what I'm saying? Crazy. Kovoa, a Venezuelan migrant, confirmed member of Tren de Aragua. And that just means the train from Aragua. So they come from Aragua. And the train part is they were originally affiliated with a railroad union. Got a lot of history here that we don't know about because these folks are from Venezuela, right? He wanted to train the kids for a large-scale shoplifting ring across the city. A shoplifting ring. Does that sound familiar? Man, we have got some shoplifting. We have got some breaking of entering of cars here in Seattle. We don't have the number of Venezuelans in Seattle because we're just too far north and west. We don't have the population of Venezuelans here to support them, but other cities across the United States sure do. Colorado, wow. The numbers there are just... And the pushback, and one of the reasons I'm doing this story is there's been huge pushback like in the vice presidential debate, where it got brought up. Hey, they're taking over certain portions of Aurora, Colorado. And oh, no, they're not. It's limited to 3 buildings. Yeah, but you took over 3 complexes, and one of them was 199 units. Tren de Aragua took over 3 complexes to the point where the owners just basically gave those properties up. And that is all ongoing right now in real time because the city is like, we got to do something here. But it's not the whole city because, the city leaders want to push back on this narrative that their entire city has been taken over. But if you got 3 pretty big apartment complexes, any which way you look at it, that is not good. That's not the direction we want to go in. And that's exactly what Trump has been talking about for years. Meanwhile, we're just letting millions into the country and, hey, yeah, it'll be fine. It'll be good. So he wanted to train the kids for a large shoplifting ring across the city, authorities said. He targeted the young teens because they face few consequences when they're caught, the sources said. These folks operate. Here's an example. Here's how these folks operate. Here's our girl from, there's no audio on this, so I'm just going to play it. This is our 𝗪𝗧𝗪𝗧𝗪𝗧𝗪𝗧𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗧𝗑$having her kids run drugs, and she's called 𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪 This is on TikTok. I ran this morning. She is not hiding. She is wildly out in the open. These folks are out in the open doing their thing. They're just, their social media. They've got followings. She gets huge numbers of likes. I mean, it's crazy. This is another good one. This one is where I kind of came up with, well, that's probably a girl, right? I mean, hardcore girl, but she's running, okay, here's the hand signs. I don't know what that means. I have no idea. But the reason I'm playing this is because they are out in the open, wide open. They are not hiding at all. So this guy going into middle schools it's not a push. It's not a push. This is, they've done everything else pretty much out in the open. Hey, we get busted 4 or 5 times. Back in the old days, right? I mean, we all think about the old days, right? Hey, before all this ridiculousness, you'd take somebody like that and just deport them. You just deport them. But no, we're going the other way. Bring them in, because they're going to vote Democrat down the road. I mean, that's the only thing that I keep coming back to. Destabilization of society. Okay. All right. Well, it's working, because when you got recruitment by an illegal gang member at a middle school, and you know what? Recruitment's been going on in schools for forever, for years. It's where you go. It's where the kids are. But it's such a known fact now that law authorities are going to be, they're going to be soft on, number one, them being illegals. Just, oh, yeah, sanctuary city. Oh, yeah. They're going to be soft on that. And then if they're under 18 and if they're kids, well, we're not really prosecuting them, and we're not sending them into juvie. Not sending them into juvie. Yeah, mother of 5. Absolutely. When I saw that, I was like, oh, those poor kids. I mean, they are already gangbangers, right? Hey, I need you to put this in your you-know-what, because the cops are coming, so I need you to hide this. Can you get it up in there now? Yeah, let's go. Here we go. Brutal. So he targeted the young teens because they face few consequences. Former U.S. Marshal Robert Amonte told the Post that it's very likely that Tren de Aragua members have enrolled in American schools. Yeah, they're in school. And I guess I hadn't really thought about that. And I was like, wait a minute, in school, how's that work? Oh, yeah, they're already recruiting, U.S. kids in school, and maybe he's recruiting the Venezuelan kids. I don't know. But I always just think of, okay, you got Houston, all right, not a huge sanctuary city, not a sanctuary state. But you've got the population to pull from there. And if you got a bunch of Venezuelans there, hey, come be part of the gang. We'll take care of you. Family, right? That's what they always talk about. They talk about family, because that's how they pitch the deal. Hey, we'll take care of you. You do work for us. We'll take care of you. That brings back memories of how the cartels like to operate and use school students to drive load vehicles across the border. And the reason they do that is that they just tell these juveniles, look, you get caught and there's nothing that's going to happen. You're going to get a slap on the wrist, which is pretty much true, said Almonte. I've talked about this a handful of times, but my Chevron gas station near my home where I go, where I know the owner, Sonny, and he had an armed robbery. They robbed the mini mart, and they robbed the people in the mini mart, 2 kids, 16 and 17. And they're from a gang down south in Auburn, Kent. And they're not going to do much time. And I talked to the owner about that. Hey, they got busted. They left their fingerprints on something on the cash register in Bellevue Police, part of a big scope of arrests that they did. They busted these 2 kids, but those kids are juveniles. They're not going to do much time. Not going to do much time. They need to get in as much crime as they can before they turn 18, because even then, this is Washington State. We're not really going after folks really hardcore, right? Got that whole Democrat thing going on, soft on crime. And it's spilling over into communities like mine, Bellevue, which has been historically very safe. Not so much anymore. Multiple sources who work in Homeland Security confirm that recruiting vulnerable kids is a priority for Tren de Aragua, whose members can entice students with money and a promise of few consequences if they're busted. Makes absolute sense. Get them while they're young, right? Get them going. Hey, this is what we believe in. Here are the hand signals. Here's the hat you wear. Here's the tattoo you get. We'll get into the tattoos in a second here, right? They're looking for vulnerable young men and women looking to prove themselves to someone. I hate to say it, but it's usually fatherless homes, said one source. Well, gangs have always been that replacement for family, right? You don't have dad around. You barely got mom around. In the case of Barbie, the one we looked at, and she's mom to 5 kids, and she's running a prostitution ring and drugs and running her kids for drugs. Different parenting, different parenting morals, right? I mean, wildly different. And that's what Trump was talking about. He was saying, hey, there's some bad folks coming in. They're dumping out their prisons. They're coming our way. And we're providing them a massive opportunity to get set up. One of the markets I'm looking at heavily is Chicago, because you've got a big population there in Tren de Aragua. How is that going to go with the existing gang base in Chicago? I don't know. That's something I'm keeping an eye on. So if you see that, shoot me an email. There's usually an email link on these videos, and we've also got the Discord channel. I get a lot of folks posting in the Discord channel, and it's great. And not a lot. I probably get more email. But if you've got a storyline you want to get it to me, you can figure out how to do that, right? Texas authorities nabbed Kovoa after learning he lived in the Houston area. He was suspected of ties to Tren de Aragua and had a warrant for theft out of Pearland, Texas, according to Texas Department of Public Safety. Kovoa was also found to have the Tren de Aragua signature tattoos of a 5-point crown, a clock, which signifies the time spent in prison, and roses. Kovoa had previously told authorities he was incarcerated for a time in Venezuela, where he was also charged for theft, per sources. See, since we don't have any real back and forth with Venezuela, we don't know who these folks are. We can't even vet these folks. And they're literally being dumped out of prisons. And hey, Venezuela doesn't have the infrastructure to take care of anybody or anything. And so, hey, guys, yeah, I know we said you could run your own prison and you guys did a stupendous job, but we can't even take care of that anymore. And so, boop, see you guys, Estados Unidos, go there. Here is, let's take a look at the tattoos for a second. This is what we know so far about the tattoos. You got the crown. Crowns are indicative of certain activities organized by members of Tren de Aragua. The Latin Kings also utilize crowns. Latin Kings, another big gang. A 5-pointed crown symbol to reference association to their criminal group. Now, Tren de Aragua is a number of different Venezuelan prison gangs under a loose affiliation. So when they've got these crowns, I believe that's 5 gangs. I mean, I'm just throwing stuff out there. Here you've got the crown with the HJ, which stands for Hijos de Dios, which means children of God. All right. Okay. They say they're children of God. All right. We might say it differently, but Tren de Aragua means Aragua train. Trains represent the origins of Tren de Aragua as a labor union working on railroads in Aragua, Venezuela. I always wondered about that. Why are we talking about trains? Well, because it was originally affiliated with a labor union. Does that make sense? Yeah, it does, doesn't it? It's like, oh, okay. All right. Weapon tattoos indicate a member's role or status as a hitman. Weapons are often depicted as an AK-47. Based on intelligence, Tren de Aragua operates on a multi-tier hierarchy system, and the 3 high-level positions within the organizations are known as principals, papas, and then luceros. I don't know what those last 2 are, but they've got all of this stuff where they can basically identify who's who, and our intel is just starting to work out. All right, is what they're doing. Okay, we've identified you're from Venezuela. Where do you fit within that? Stars of various designs, including nautical stars on the shoulders, possibly indicate leadership status. Everything means something, right? Hasta la muerte means till death and has been reported on as being language used by Tren de Aragua members. Tattoos of gas masks and grenades, common in cartels and gangs, sometimes indicate a role in security and lost friends, family, respectively. Members of Tren de Aragua are known to use hand signs, we saw that, represent their membership in the criminal organization. But that is true of any gang, right? That's true of any gang. It's not like this is new stuff here. And this is a notice from the New York City Police Department. So they're throwing that out there, and I've looked at some of that before. Here's an interesting one. This is basically, and we've talked about this, but let's go through this for a second. This is how they're getting here. This is Tren de Aragua's spread across the West. We're just going to focus on kind of the map and what you got going on here. So they get from Venezuela to Chihuahua, which is the northern end of Mexico. And then from there, they go directly into El Paso. And then from El Paso, they go New York City, Chicago, Denver, Utah County, and then into Idaho. And that's an interesting one. Into Idaho. Yeah. New York City, Chicago, Denver. Those are the main big cities that have said, oh yeah, bring them our way because we're sanctuary cities. We love them here. So talk about Chihuahua. That's where they operate from. El Paso. This is where Tren de Aragua members are first entering the U.S. Denver. Thousands of Venezuelan migrants have moved here, and Tren de Aragua have followed, taking over apartment complexes in the city and neighboring Aurora. Now, the big pushback in this election cycle is, it's just like it's just a handful of apartment complex buildings. That is just what they've busted so far. That's just what they've dealt with. There's tons of other stuff that's going on. It's not just those 3 buildings. Those 3 buildings were a big deal because they were easy to take over. You had weak management. You had some crappy apartment complexes to begin with. You already had a whole bunch of Venezuelans living there because housing in Denver is so expensive. They've gone next door to the city of Aurora. You got entry-level housing. You can get into these units very easy. The management company basically was run out. There was an attempted murder or a threat of murder. So the management company is like, we're out of here. We're going to take off because this isn't really going our way. No salary is worth what is happening here. And so you did have a time period where Tren de Aragua, and we saw the video, where they're coming up the stairwell, they're banging on the door, they're going inside. The guy's got a AR, or AK-47, one of those assault guns. We had all that, blew up in the news, and then the news wants to say, and Democrats want to say, that was just a couple of buildings. It's not the entire city of Aurora. It's not. It's just not. It's overblown. Any which way you look at it, gangs are here in the United States, and they've got a foothold. And now we're talking actual busting folks, recruiting from middle schools. So we got Chicago, we got New York City, we got Utah County. Sheriff reports numerous Tren de Aragua members have been arrested here. Utah County, Utah. Canyon County, Idaho. Sheriff also reports members of Tren de Aragua operating and committing crimes. They're in the Pacific Northwest. They're in Portland. You know damn well they're in Seattle, because the question would be, why wouldn't they be? Right? I mean, why not come to Seattle? You get away with everything here. We're not a tough on crime city. We're just socialism is great. We love communism. It's all good. It's all good. Just come here and do your thing. We'll pay for all of it. But this wasn't Kova's first rodeo. We're back to Kova, our guy recruiting at the middle school. Kova had his first encounter with U.S. law enforcement at the border in El Paso, Texas. In Eagle Pass, Texas. That's where I was a couple of times. In July of 2022, when he crossed with 3 kids and a woman he said was his wife. He was released. We have no way of verifying any of this stuff. All we have is, all right, he came through. He said he was with a handful of kids, said he was with the wife. He's probably done it before. He's probably made a bunch of runs. You know what I mean? He was released under supervision of Immigration and Customs Enforcement under ICE, but failed to comply with their orders and was also a no-show to his later asylum interview. Oh, because that's not going to go well. Hey, what about that big, neck tattoo you got going on here? What do you got going on there? It's nothing. It's nothing. Just, a day that my dog died. Folks aren't stupid. So they know that when they end up at these interviews, oftentimes it's not going to go well. So, hey, thanks for the date of, you're going to tell me I should show up and talk with somebody, but I'm better off just kind of running free here. It's like all the gotaways, right? Getaways. There's a reason that they're not doing what all of the other illegals are doing, which is running down a border official and saying, hey, we're here. Can you send us to the migrant shelter? There's a reason millions and millions have come into the United States, and they're known gotaways or getaways. Because there's something where if they start talking about who they are, trying to establish what's going on with them, it's not going to go well. And they're probably going to end up being deported or, end up in jail or some damn thing, right? From here, he began his theft spree across Houston, Dallas, and Arizona. So we know he's been busted for theft multiple spots, where he led a crew of 10 Tren de Aragua gangbangers in stealing thousands of dollars of merchandise from high-end stores, according to law enforcement sources. So we know this, and yet he's still bouncing around. He's still in the country. After you steal from one community, let's move on to the next. Houston didn't work out. Let's go to the Big D. Big D, it's getting a little hot here. Let's go west. Let's go to Arizona. All right, let's get out to Arizona. Things will be good there. And then he ends up back in Houston. Hey, kitty, you come and be part of the gang. The squad was seen in pictures and videos with drugs, automatic firearms, and stacks of cash. I mean, that's pretty standard stuff, right? In July of 2023, cops in Houston arrested Kovoa for felony theft, but he was let go the next day after posting $1,000 bond. $1,000 bond. So, I mean, what are we even doing here? That's when I read these stories, and I'm sure you're just as annoyed, listening to me read these stories. But when I read these stories, I'm like, what? What? What are we doing? You've got an illegal in the country who blew off his date. He needs to go in and talk about his immigration. And clearly we somehow know he's a member of Tren de Aragua, right? We've got all of this intel, got all these details. And then, you're posting $1,000 bond. All right. Okay. In April of this year, Kovoa was arrested for 2 separate theft incidents, including one in which he allegedly led a crew that included a child to shoplift $3,600 worth of perfumes from an Ulta beauty store in Arizona. The charges were ultimately dropped. Man, have you ever been into an Ulta beauty store? I went with my son Brennan's girlfriend one time. And my son, Brennan, we went into one because she was getting, I don't know, something. It was so bright. It was, mirrors everywhere. That whole experience was traumatic, obviously. I'm like, get me out. I gotta go. I gotta go down to Foot Locker and look at some socks, one of those kind of things. But $3,600 worth of perfumes. How much is a perfume? I mean, we talking 20 or 30 of these little things? How you jacking those out of there? You just run in, run out? I don't know. The charges were ultimately dropped. $3,600 worth of perfume. And, we can't exactly prove that you did it. The next month, Kovoa was arrested for shoplifting, but those charges were again dropped. Oh, you're from Venezuela? Oh, hear things are tough there. Yeah. So, this is kind of where we sit with all of this ridiculousness. And we've got these known folks just running around our communities, and guaranteed, this is kind of how I think, this moves forward. You will see them identified in more and more cities. Just about any sanctuary city is going to have Tren de Aragua presence. And you're going to see more and more of those stories. So it's gone from limited to Chicago, limited to New York City, where we knew they were operating. But now, and we've had kind of rumors of where they've expanded to. But when I saw that somebody had been busted down in Portland, that's when I was like, okay. Or they were identified in Portland. Maybe that was it. They were identified in Portland. The real question is why wouldn't they be? Why wouldn't they expand to as many markets as humanly possible? Because they've got something that all the other existing gangs don't, which is if you're in a sanctuary city, authorities they're going to let you go. They're going to let you do your thing. They're going to say, oh, here things are tough in Venezuela. Get back out there and maybe try not to commit as many crimes. Maybe try not to, use your children as drug mules. Maybe try and not recruit the middle schoolers. But these are the stories you're not going to see on mainstream media. And I talk to my friends that aren't, little to the right. I talk to them about these stories and they're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, hey, dummy, check my podcast. And they're like, oh, I had no idea. Yeah, that's because these stories don't get a ton of airtime because it's not a good look for the current administration. Saw you guys talking about anything comment-wise you're making on Kamala Harris is being deleted, and you can say whatever you want about Trump, but, or maybe it was the other way around. I can't remember. But you guys on the live stream, you guys were talking about the fact that you're being censored. Of course you are. Of course you are. I mean, YouTube is a liberal outlet. And unfortunately, if I could do this on Rumble, I would. And we have done simultaneous live streams on Rumble. We've done live streams on Rumble. There's just nobody there. It's crickets. Everybody always says, I should go to Rumble. We've been posting our content on Rumble for years. And you know what we get? A tiny, tiny fraction of what's going on YouTube. And so you got to go where you got to go. One of the big things that I'm kind of seeing out of the election, we'll tie this back to the election here, is that anything somebody asks in one of these debates, anything they ask Kamala Harris, anybody with half of a head on their shoulders asks, what's your game plan for, the illegal immigration? What's your game plan for inflation? What's your game plan for high grocery prices? And Kamala Harris, she answers those questions. And then all you got to do is spin that back to, well, what have you been doing the last almost 4 years of this administration? And then Biden was part of the Obama administration. So 12 out of the last 16 years, the Democrats have been in charge, and we've got all these issues. And so it's so easy just to hammer on the fact, well, what have you been doing? Why didn't you do that while you were in office as vice president? Well, and then you get that word salad, just where she just says a bunch of stuff, just a bunch of nonsense. So one of the ways to combat some of what's going on out there with that is social media just kind of on the sly. They just, let's go ahead and we'll do a little filtering process because we don't want to have hate speech. We don't want to have hate speech. So, whatever it is, it's going on out there. It's going on out there. And so my last thing before I let you guys go is the timeline think about this, the timeline on the laptop from hell. FBI had that laptop October or November of 2019. And then the New York Post, who we are reading here, they ran that story about the laptop from hell in October of 2020, a full year later. So you think they're not trying to, take some comments off when they see them pop up, and they've got them on bots. They got bots set up to take comments off when you guys touch on something touchy. Absolutely. Absolutely. This is war. I mean, you are at war here. And if you only follow mainstream media, you wouldn't be aware of any of this. You wouldn't be aware of, it's surprising if you talk to somebody who watches a lot of CNN or CBS or NBC, they won't have heard of Tren de Aragua. They might have heard a story somewhere, somehow, but it wouldn't have been in their normal feed. But those are the things that we're focusing on because this is what's happening and this is what's really going on, because this is news for reasonable people. This is not news for people who put their head in the sand and pretend that everything's great, when in fact, you've got some crazy, crazy stuff going on that has been going on for years. There's always recruitment of kids into gangs, right? But this one's a little different because they're not coming from our country. They're coming from outside. And this is where we sit. So whether or not you knew about this story till today, I wanted to cover it because there's a lot of this stuff happening in real time right now. It's not just those 3 apartment complexes. It's not just that hotel in El Paso. It's all across the United States. And it's happening. And mainstream media will try and keep a lid on that, at least until after the elections are over. And then they'll be like, hey, look at this. There was way more apartments across the United States that have been taken over. Good Lord. And if Trump wins, what are you going to do about that, President Trump? You know what I mean? It's laughable. It's laughable how this goes. But yeah, that is it for me on this one. I'm covering these topics. Thank you so much for being here. I'd love to have you subscribe if you're not already. And I'll catch up with you on the next live stream, and that will be on this coming Thursday. So again, thanks for being here. We'll see you then. Bye for now.